This show is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find the other great shows on the network, head over to the deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Do you like drinking beer in the garage with your friends on a Friday night and just talking about movies, music, pop culture in general? Well then, my friends, I have a great podcast for you to check out. It's called the 10 Cent Beer Night Podcast. My name is Ray. I am the host, and I set out to prove things beyond a shadow of a doubt every time I do one of these things. So let's hang out.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Deluxe Edition. I am your host, Casey Shearer. With me, as always, Ray, the podcaster.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, buddy? Merry Christmas, Ray.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone. God bless us all.
How was your day, man? You have a good Christmas?
Yeah, Christmas is great, man. You get food. Sometimes you get presents, unless you're a bad asshole, and then you get coal. I've been heating my house with all the coal I got.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, this Christmas is going to be better for you because we just had a great conversation with Sam Benjamin. When I started doing the research for Sam, I was like, I don't even want to talk about anything but pro wrestling because I found out that early on that this guy was a pro wrestling fan, and I held it in until the end of the episode, Ray.
Yeah, you did. You did a good job holding it. It's kind of like when I was talking to John about punk rock. I could have just kept going and going, and you got to cut yourself off. You got to stop at some point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just turns into a whole show about that. So, you know, it's cool. He's knowledgeable about wrestling, though. It was wild.
I have to be honest with everyone. Sam talked about a lot of things from the 90s during wrestling in here, and I've done a lot of drugs and other things since then. And I kind of don't remember those specific things that he was talking about, but I went along with it.
I just kept waiting for you guys to bring up Doink the Clown, but it never came up.
Matt Bourne.
So what are we doing this thing or what?
We're doing it right. All right, let's get into it. Let's get the house cleaning out of the way, and then we'll get right into the show. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to whatamaneuver.net/collections/deluxe-edition and buy a t-shirt, or go to patreon.com/deluxe-edition-pod. Or you can go to deluxeedition.show and find all of our previous shows. We are also on Instagram and Twitter at Deluxe Edition Pod. And we are a part of this thing called the Deluxe Edition Network, found at deluxeeditionnetwork.com. And the podcast of the month, this month, is my co-host, Big Ray, the 10 Cent Beer Night Podcast.
It's still me. This is the last time, though, that I got to put up with this nonsense about my other podcast being worth the fuck. But I'm so glad that's over with, because... yeah.
Where can people find you, Ray?
You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. Just type in 10 Cent Beer Night Podcast, and I will pop right up, hopefully. And you can go to TeePublic, same thing, punch in the name of the show, and you can buy pillows, T-shirts. I think we got onesies for fucking babies on there if you really want your kid wearing a shirt that has beer on it. I mean, the only thing we don't have that I really want to get, I got to find a company that makes baseball jerseys. I want to do a 10 Cent Beer Night baseball jersey.
Yeah.
So
I love baseball jerseys.
Oh, yeah. Well,
like the baseball jersey T-shirt?
No, I want the full button up because, you know, as I'm getting bigger, you know, I got a beer gut. I like that beer gut look where, you know, it's the typical fat American middle-aged guy where he's got the wife beater under it and he's got the wide open baseball jersey. That's what I'm looking to capitalize on. That's the market I'm after.
You want buttons that you're not going to button.
You're goddamn right.
I love it. 10 Cent Beer Night Podcast and night with a K. And check out all the other great shows. Check out our show next week. It's going to be January 1st, 2023. We're going to have Kevin Van Hentenryck on from the movie Basket Case. If you have any questions for Kevin, please hit us up on Facebook and let us know, or Instagram, Twitter, anywhere that we can be found. We will take your questions for Kevin. And then after that, we have Chris Candy, John Candy's son. We'll be talking with him. And then we're also doing a thing in the new year, Ray, with a deluxe edition network takeover. So we're going to have something very special in January for that.
Mm-hmm.
Should I give it away? Should I spoil it?
Go ahead and spoil it. Fuck it.
All right. January 7th, we're going to be doing something a little different. Is it January 7th or January 8th? Elvis's birthday.
Oh, January 8th.
January 8th. So I'm not sure what the day of January 8th is, if it's a Sunday or not. I know we come out every Sunday at 8 p.m. But if January 8th happens to not be a Sunday, there will be an episode coming out that day with, it's going to be called Barrel Aged Deluxe Edition, with Ron and Stu coming in and doing a hostile takeover of Deluxe Edition, and we'll be talking about the new movie, the new Elvis movie.
Yeah, they can try and take over, but I'll be crawling through the fucking ducks and eating Twinkies and walking on broken glass to defend the Deluxe Edition, so they can try.
No, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to that. And then we have a lot of cool stuff coming up in the new year. We're going to be doing things like that with all of the shows on the network, where they come in and they take over for an episode. So come check us out. Tell your friends, and enjoy this episode with Sam Benjamin. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Ho, ho, ho.
Sam, how are you, brother?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, man. So the star of the new movie Payday.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about that, because there's a lot of other things that I want to talk with you about after we talk about Payday.
Cool. After he pours himself his drink.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, man. You're the writer. You're the star. Why did you opt out of directing this one?
Like that. Why didn't you do everything? I really pushed to be the costume designer as well, but they said no. As well as the props guy. I really fancy myself as a good props guy. Well, I mean, the truth of it is that if I, in my 12 years of being a professional actor, if I'd already been starring in a movie, I may not have written a movie. So it came out of necessity. Kyla Fry, who's the leading lady, her and I, for a while, we were doing good stuff, but no one was really giving us a shot at playing a leading role. So that's how it came about. So, and this project was always in tandem with Sam Bradford, the director. It was always within his vision as well, and he played a big part of it. So it just kind of organically came together. It's his first feature film that he wanted to do, and it happened that way.
I watched it today, man. It's a great movie, a crime caper, as you call it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's been called a heist movie, a crime caper movie. One review said that it's a rom-com pretending to be a heist movie. Yeah, but we wanted to nod to, Britain has a tradition of making crime caper movies, going back to Michael Caine with The Italian Job and films like that. So we wanted to nod to a bit of that, nod to a bit of the Ocean's 11, and we wanted to keep it fun, but still have a bit of danger to it as well.
So this isn't the first time that you and her name's Kyla, right?
Yeah.
Kyla Fry. You guys have worked together in the past?
We have. We worked together on a short film that we also wrote that was the genesis for this. That was called Double Cross. It's an 8-minute short that's on Amazon Prime if anyone wants to go check it out. And that was us just going, hey, we wanted to work together. No one had cast us together, and we just thought, I think we've got some good chemistry on screen here. So we did that, and then 7 years later, the payday happened. We also worked on a web series called The Few, and it's really cool. It's special when you find an actor. Sometimes you be on you turn up to set and you act opposite someone, and they're acting, and it's fine. But then there's other times when you're on set with someone and they're really listening, and you can throw out all of your planned stuff because they just keep giving you stuff that challenges you and makes you kind of like stepping onto court, with a better tennis player or a high stakes game. When you've got good chemistry with someone, it elevates both.
So how did you and Kyla first meet? You guys have been working together for a long time.
We met at the Lyric Theatre in Hammersmith, London, and it was a night of short plays. And I think I had written a short play. This was back in 2011. I'd written a short play that someone asked me to write, and she really liked it. And in between rehearsals, we got chatting and we really hit it off on movies and music. And we just kept in touch ever since. And kind of a 11-year friendship now, put into a feature film. And I want to do another film with her as well. Yeah,
she's great. And I'm not giving anything away here, but I think it's left open for a payday too, right? There's more there. There's definitely more there.
Yeah, definitely. We wanted to tell a well-rounded film with a good ending, but also there is a hint that these characters could come together again, perhaps for a sequel or a series. But we'll see how the audience thinks of this one first, and then
it's really good, man. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
What's your writing process like for something like this?
For this one, it was the characters dictated the story. So we knew we had the Jen character and the George character and those energies. And then it was just a case of finding out who those characters were going to be at the beginning of the film versus who those characters were going to be at the end of the film. And then working out the most fun, entertaining, challenging journey for both of them in a plot that we could shoot on a not too big a budget, essentially. So it was a combination of practicality and also lean into the strengths of the characters and the energies of myself and Kyla and working with what we had. And so I guess that was it. And then once we started working out what kind of budget we might have, it was then a case of going, right, wouldn't it be good if the whole mission takes place in one location so that, we can focus on, crafting a story that cleverly uses an office building with different nooks and crannies and places to go to. And then it just kind of went from there, really. And then I've been saying on a few podcasts when people ask me, especially writing podcasts, is that I realize that most of the time I write angry. That's like my writing state is pure anger. And the anger is the fuel to get to the end. In a similar way to, I don't know, I've heard Sylvester Stallone talk about how, I think he says writing is just the most miserable, boring, mind-numbing, horrendous, challenging things you can possibly want to do with your time, and there's a million distractions. So you got to have a bit of motivation, and mine is anger.
So you're basically sitting there like, I can't believe I'm fucking wasting my time doing this. This is so fucking stupid. As you angrily just type away and beat on the keyboard.
Oh, you want a movie? I'll give you a movie. Here we go. Oh, you want that, do you? Okay. Well, all right. Here you go. I'll give you. Yeah.
Shit. I'm gonna try that. I never tried writing angry. I'm gonna try that.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. You don't want to write in a good place because then who wants that?
Jesus, Ray's gonna be cranking out all kinds of fucking scripts out. He's always angry.
If I knew that was how it was done, I'd have already
Yeah.
Fuck.
You just got to channel it.
Yeah.
And you're living in LA now, right, Sam?
I'm in LA at the moment, yeah.
So there's a lot to be angry about out there, especially if you do you drive? Are you driving in the United States?
I do drive, yeah. What's it to be? I don't really. I'm a bit of. I've got that that kind of foreigner immigrant energy though, so everything seems to be amazing to me.
Okay.
So I think a lot of Americans are more annoyed than me. I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten me. What's going on?
Well, I travel for work every week, and I've for the last few months I've been back and forth to California several times, and the traffic in LA is horrendous. To go 4 miles, it takes you an hour and a half.
But then, from the British point of view on that, is that LA's roads are really well designed, and actually, if you don't travel in rush hour, the ground you cover is way quicker than the ground you'd cover in Britain. When you look at the map, like I look at the map and I'll put it in, and I'll go, oh, that looks like it's about a 25-minute, and it'd be like 3 minutes. And yeah, there might be traffic, but in England, it's just like all the roads are all interweaving with one another. They're tiny, way slower. So yeah, I think Brits, as long as you obviously travel in rush hour, that's a whole different story. But yeah,
it's crazy how different of a story that is in rush hour. Like,
yeah,
I was trying to get out of a hotel one time. I was looking at at Google Maps, and it says you can set your time on there for arrival time or whatever, departure, and it was like if I leave by 6 a.m. it'll take me an hour. If I leave at 6:22, it'll take me like 3 hours. It's like, and I'll never forget this, that specific trip, because I was on like the 4th floor and I had to carry all of my stuff down all the steps because the elevator was out of service. And it took me longer because then I also had to stop and bitch at the counter as to why the elevator wasn't working.
Love that.
So you mentioned that one difference of LA and your home country. What are some of the other differences, the major differences of you grew up in Birkenhead, right?
Yeah, which is near my home city is Liverpool. And then I lived in London for about 12, 13 years. I'd say if you're comparing London to LA, from a British point of view, there's just a more positive, outgoing vibe in LA compared to London. People talk to each other. In London, unless they've had 5 beers, they don't talk to each other. In London, if you go out at night and you hit a bar and you have a few bevies, then yeah, you can talk to people, but in the day, if you talk to anyone, people think you're mental. Even if you ask them a question, they might just ignore you and just pretend that you're not there. Whereas in LA, you can strike up a convo with anyone, and I really love that energy over here. And the customer service is way better. Oh my God. Go back to England, it'd be like a cold shower. You'd be like, excuse me, do you mind if you do your job? And they'll be like, what? Oh, you want to buy something now? Oh, cash or card? Oh, cash. Oh, that's what it's like in London.
Well, I gotta tell you, maybe I get around a lot more than most people, but people are like that everywhere here also. Like the other morning at a budget car rental, I asked for a receipt, and it was the same deal. Same deal. The guy,
yeah.
I'm like, can you just please print me out a receipt? Because I don't want to do it when I get home.
Yeah.
And he's, and he prints it. It took him like 3 seconds. And I go, I was like, I made it a point to be really loud. And I was like, hey, man, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do that for me.
I love that. Yeah.
But it's people are like that here too.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about your stage acting with Kyla. You met her there, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about auditioning to play Paul McCartney in the Beatles play.
Where did you get that from? So that that was. I'm not going to tell you what the. So it was a play that this company was putting on about John and Paul, and the auditions were in London, and I turned up thinking that it was going to be every Liverpool actor and his dog all ready to nail these Liverpool roles. And I thought, oh, I'll just go anyway, it'd be fun. And then when I got there in the waiting room, all I could hear was lots of Londoners doing terrible Liverpool accents. And like it was like This Is Spinal Tap. It was like everyone was doing these weird Beatles mockumentary voices, and I just thought, what is going on here? And I thought, my second thought was, I'm going to get this if this is the standard. And so I went in, and I actually asked my brother. My brother is a big Beatles fan. I'm a casual fan. He's a proper fan. And I said to him, I was like, right, I've got to do Paul. Like, if you got any, give me the tips. So he gave me a few tips. And then I went in and I just altered my voice just a little bit. My voice is, I suppose, quite close to Paul. If it's just a little change of tone, and then it's very easy to, go into the, that kind of sound, but it's not too far off. So I just went in and I kind of knew I had a secret weapon because it was like a natural accent. And it was a panel. And as soon as I started speaking, I could see them all going, they all like relaxed. And then me and this guy playing John, we did a good audition. And then basically they ended up offering me the role of Paul. But then in the interim, I'd spoken to some people about the company that was making it. And I heard some really bad things. There was lots of red flags. So I turned it down in the end because I was like, oh, this is going to go south. This is not going to be a good production. It's going to, I've heard things about funding falling through and they don't pay people properly and all that. So in the end, I didn't do it, but it was a great moment to at least win the Paul McCartney role. I've auditioned for a few other. I didn't audition to play Pete Best probably about a year ago for a movie that I didn't get. So obviously, I don't know, maybe the Beatles thing has escaped me as of yet.
Well, I thought it was funny when I think might have been your brother that you asked what, you had the voice down, you had the tone down, you asked what else is there that I can do? And he said, just add, in between everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just say, a lot. And it was a good way into the character. It was a lot of fun. I mean, he's an icon, isn't he? Every time I hear him, I just smile. He's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard you say when you were a kid, you were a very shy kid. What led you to the stage and acting? How did you get the acting bug?
It was because I was shy and I didn't have to be myself. I didn't have confidence being myself, but if you give me a character and some lines to say, I've got an excuse to be confident. So that was it. I didn't want to be in my own shoes, pretty much. And then I grew up in a family of movie-obsessed fanatics. And I don't know, I guess I loved all of that. I loved my action figures and escaping into heroic roles, whether it be like Batman or pro wrestlers or, all these big confident characters. I loved stepping into that and being able to do that. And yeah, it was just something about it. Like you try different things in life, and whether it be on the football pitch or in the classroom or, whatever skill it was, I always felt like with other skills, I could be decent if I put in loads of work. Whereas with acting, it felt like it came naturally to me. Kind of like when when I was on a Sunday league football team and you'd see certain players and they'd receive the ball and it was just magic. And you're like, oh my God, this guy he just knows what to do, which I never felt. Whereas with acting, put me on a stage and something about it, I felt like, oh, I think I know what to do here. Not to say you don't need to work hard at it, but it just felt like it was where I was meant to be. So I just followed that instinct.
Do you remember the first movie you saw that you were like, I think I can do this?
Yeah. In the cinema, it was the first Mission Impossible movie.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and I can still remember I didn't fully understand the plot because I was probably I don't know what rating that film got, but it was quite, for a kid it was quite a complex plot. But yeah, seeing that Ethan Hunt character defiant and still taking a battering as well, I just thought, oh yeah, that's that was the first movie. But then at home, I remember my auntie got me the video of the Michael Keaton Batman.
Oh hell yeah, that's a good one too.
That for me was a game changer because I loved the Batman character, and I also loved that his Bruce Wayne was in a way shy and lonely. I really loved that, and I thought that I kind of related to that. When I was a kid, it was up until I was 11. I pretty much lived with just me and my mum, and I had a lot of time to myself. So I had that like, oh, it's kind of like me, like I'm like in the Batcave,
Yeah.
So, and it's funny actually. I had a full circle moment with Mission Impossible because about 3 years ago, I went to Prague with my mom and my brother. And I got my brother to take a photo of me and my mom doing one of the poses and the scenes that Tom Cruise and Kristen Scott Thomas do outside of the Prague building about when the knock list gets out in the open. I was like, Mom, you got to do this. And she was like, all right, fine. So that was fun.
That's awesome.
Do you remember what was the first acting that you did? Was it in school or?
Yeah, I think in primary school I did, a few plays, and then the Christmas nativity play. I think I played a shepherd in one of those. Didn't get the Jesus role, but sometimes the supporting roles are a little bit tastier. And then I went to for my high school, they didn't do drama, so I did joined a theatre group outside of school, and I also went to an all boys school, so there was the extra bonus of like, oh, there's women here, this is amazing. It's 90% women, and most of the men are gay, so this is a good it's a good environment for success in terms of finding a girlfriend here when you're in your teenage years.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting because we talked to George Buza a few weeks ago. He was a voice actor, or still is a voice actor. He was in. You probably have heard him. He was Beast in X-Men animated series.
Oh, nice.
But he also went to an all boys school in Ohio, and then he started doing stage plays and that stuff as well in high school. He would go around to girls' schools and audition for plays. That's
a great idea.
Would you guys do the same thing or no? Or
we had
I guess like how I'm asking, you said you're at all boys school. Would the girls come to your school and audition to be in the play, or like how would that work?
No, so we in our school there was a boys' school and a girls' school, and they were next to each other. So they did do, when they did a play, they only did one play a year, I think, and it was only people who were 16 to 18. And they did, for that one, it was boys and girls from both schools would come together to do it. But they'd always do, first of all, they always did musicals. And until I went to drama school, I was never really a musical fan. And I wanted to do meaty plays. But then also, the music director of these plays was the head of music, and the head of music hated me because he invited I used to play the saxophone, and he sent me a letter one day saying something like, oh, congratulations, I'm now inviting you to join the woodwind group, or my woodwind group orchestra. We meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I was like, no, I'm all right. and he was like, we had this awkward thing, and he goes, no, it's like, this is a prestigious thing, like it's not a
invite
show.
only, man.
Yeah, you've now been chosen to be part of like the group. And then I was like, I don't want to be in the group, because like I wasn't by no stretch was I one of the cool kids in high school, by no stretch, but I definitely didn't want to be in the bloody woodwind group. I know that wouldn't have gone down well with the clientele. So I hated school, so I didn't want to spend my extra time at school. So I was just like, no, I'm all right, thank you. And then so from then on, he hated me, and he had a big say in who was cast in the plays.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of burnt my bridge there. So I always just did it outside of school, which was a lot of fun.
So yeah, outside of school, then you meet Patrick Stewart. Tell us about that. He came to one of your classes. Where was that at?
So that was, I'll try and tell it quick. So there's a thing called the National Student Drama Festival. They watch about 100 plays a year of students putting on plays. I was in a play. They pick actors from all the plays, and then all those actors audition, and then they pick 15 actors every year to go to their summer school. And I got picked, went to their summer school, and it was at the University of Huddersfield, which is Patrick Stewart's hometown. And he came along and taught us some Shakespeare, and that was just an epic moment. And they surprised us as well. They didn't tell us that he was going to be doing that. He just turned up. And it was also when I learned that he is not a posh, like rich background, upper class gentleman, as his voice may suggest sometimes, but he's actually a working class lad from a blue collar town in the north of England. A town not too dissimilar to my hometown. And so suddenly there's a realization going, oh, maybe it's doable. Maybe, he really inspired me that, and lit a fire under me that was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can, not to say that like, oh, if Patrick Stewart can do it, I can do it. But it was just meeting someone and having someone who gave their time to me. And having earned that spot at that summer school, it was a real moment of going, wow, this isn't just a dream world. I reckon I can actually have a good crack at this. So that was a big turning point for me. And I've never met him since. Hopefully one day I will. And I'll be able to thank him, to his face.
You said something there that I've heard you say before in some of the other interviews that I've been listening to, that you realized, or that was when you found out that he wasn't from a rich upper class background, and as his voice may suggest, do people change their voice? Like, why do you say that? Like, do people who are higher class speak different than other people there?
It's really interesting to hear your perspective on that. So the way, this is obviously my version of history, but essentially accents are a big deal in England. And the way I've always learned it was that the kind of the Queen's English, so to speak, the posh, well-spoken British accent is actually an artificial creation from public schools, i.e. private fee-paying schools from centuries ago, and they wanted to create it so that if you were educated from one of these schools, you would stand out. So it's actually an artificially created accent, whereas all the other areas and regions of the UK have organic accents that have come from the various different people that have lived there and all that kind of thing. So the aftermath of that now is that accent can often reveal your background. In Patrick Stewart's case, so there's a generation of actors. I went to drama school, like many actors have done. But years ago, if you went to drama school, they taught you to lose your natural accent and to speak with what you could say is the Queen's English, or received pronunciation, as it's called. So Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are two really good examples of people that, like, Ian McKellen is from Bolton, a blue collar town in the northwest of England, and people from Bolton talk like this, really broad, colourful accent. So that kind of generation, they were taught, they were kind of, it was, I don't want to say beaten out of them, but it was kind of said, hey, if you're going to be an actor, you have to have this neutral accent with perfect pronunciation so that you can get work, and then you can always learn the different accents from that. So that's kind of, they don't do that anymore. In drama schools, they let you keep your accent, but they just teach you how to do other ones. So that's where it comes from, but it's intertwined with a lot of class, history within England, and there's still a bit of a hangover of the class system in the industry as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. I've had been hung up on that for a while since I heard you say that in the past. That's really interesting. So are they still teaching that Queen's English? Is that?
Yeah, so it is still, it's an accent that people speak with, and when you go to drama school now, they will teach you, it's called received pronunciation, and I guess it's defined as a regionless English accent, with certain sounds that kind of, like how Patrick Stewart speaks. So they do teach you how to do it. It's up to the actor whether they want to change their speaking voice to that, or whether they want to. And sometimes as well, you can't help it. Some people pick up accents. It's like, I've got a British friend who moved to America 5 years ago, and I speak to him now, and he sounds American to me. So, different people. I don't know what the research is, but I think some people, there's a word they use. Some people they naturally sponge up the sounds of their environment really quick, and they adopt the voice of where they are. Whereas other people, if they hit a certain age and they've spoken a certain way, it doesn't matter what you do, they're always going to sound like that. So that's kind of what it, and it can be a bit of an identity crisis as well, if you, especially from the north, and you go to the south, London, and then you're like, oh, and then you go back up there and they think you sound really posh. And you're like, oh, you sound like one of them southern, posh fairies now. What are you doing? And then you go back down, and they're like, bloody hell, you this northern rough guy over here. So it's a really interesting thing, and I think it's one of the reasons why British actors love coming to America, because in America, to us at least, there's just that classism isn't there. So I can turn up, and if I speak in my normal accent, as far as they're concerned, I'm British. And I can play a British high-class lawyer, or I can play a British drug dealer. Doesn't really matter. Like, they'll believe me either way, and be open to it. So that's why a lot of Brits love the American industry.
That's kind of funny, because here we have different dialects too, and everyone just assumes everyone from the South is an idiot. So that accent kind of gets that, you're a hillbilly who's, drinking moonshine in the mountains.
Yeah.
And if you sound like you're from New York, there's a certain aspect of it.
Yeah.
So you probably, do you think we all sound the same for the most part? Obviously, we have a tough time. I couldn't tell you different British accents. Yeah. Like you said, I'm American. I hear you speak. I go, British.
There you go.
Don't know where the hell he's from, but he's British.
It's no, it depends on the person. Because it's my trade, I've got quite a good ear for accents, so I love trying to figure out where people are from. I think generally, if you asked an average Brit, they would know, in terms of accents, they would know, they'd be like, right, you've got American, and you've got, which means they could be from anywhere, and then you've got New York, and you've got the South. I think that'd be, everyone knows what a New Yorker sounds like, especially if it would just be an imitation of like De Niro in a gangster film.
Right.
Or like, or one of those stereotypical like Scorsese accents. And then just general American, like how, I don't know, Tom Cruise speaks when he's in an interview. And then there's Southern, which is associated with the cowboys and the rednecks and all of that kind of thing. So I think that'd be general. You've got three accents according to me. but yeah, I think because there's so much now, like Brits, I don't know whether Americans realize, but we watch so much of your shows and movies that we often know a lot about. You watch a few Boston crime films, and then you know about this, and then you watch a few Coen Brothers movies, and you're like, oh, so we got that accent as well, Francis McDormand and all that. So and because our accents, we've got so many in England, we kind of probably have a good ear for it.
How's your American accent?
I mean, I've been paid to do it, so I'll take that as it's not too bad.
If you got paid to do it, then I say it's good. Then
yeah, exactly. That's the definition.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe the next project I'll get to do a nice Utah accent.
There you go. You could play a cowboy. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. There you go.
Absolutely. I can see it. While we're talking about accents, I recently started listening to, and I don't want this to go off on the tangent that it could go off onto just yet, but I started recently listening to William Regal's podcast. Oh. And I know. Calm down. We'll get there. He has said about how many people have come up to him and done horrible British accents. Mm-hmm. And I was going to ask you the same question. And then I started watching interviews and listening to interviews that you've done over the past couple of years. And I can't believe the amount of people who will do it on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as flattery if somebody does an impersonation of your home accent. I think it's all good fun. And you get people doing, but it's the same thing that happens when an American comes over to Liverpool, and as soon as we hear you're American, someone will be, doing it. Oh, howdy, partner.
I'm from America.
Like, yeah, I'm from how's America? How's it going? And then people are like, I'm from New England actually. So yeah, I love all that stuff. I love people, and I love the constant American British chat of you call it that? What? And finding out there's certain little phrases that are not obvious that you don't understand and we don't understand. So there's a lot of fun. And William Regal, what a legend, a fellow Northern Brit from Blackpool, the Northwest. So he's
man.
Someone who.
We're gonna get into a little wrestling talk. I saw your shirt there. Not just yet. Yeah. Not just yet. Let's go back to stage acting.
Yeah.
I think just about everybody, Ray, that we've talked to has had a stage background, other than last week's guest, John Ross Bowie.
Yeah.
How important do you feel stage acting and Shakespeare is to hone your craft as an actor?
I think every actor has their own journey, and that their journey should be defined by and will be defined by where they grew up, what their upbringing is, what they have access to, whether it be resources or local clubs, facilities, resources, all that kind of thing. But I think the way I see it is, if you look at someone like Prince, his ability to do funk, jazz, rock, R&B is informed by his insane knowledge of classical music and the scales and all the different keys. So I think it is that there's something about the classical, the principles of classical acting and stage acting and Shakespeare, that it gives you a discipline and a knowledge of what's possible. And then, so when you do go in and play, then when you finish drama school and you end up playing, they call you in and they say, can you just do your accent and do exactly who you are? And just literally just be yourself in this cheesy throwaway action film. Then you go, oh, okay. And you might not even pull in on, it's the same thing, I think, as a musician. If it's a classically trained pianist, and then they call you in and they go, yeah, we got these 3 chords, we're going to riff, we're going to just use those three today, you know, in this scale. You're not going to use all the scales. Not every job you're going to need all the keys. Not every job you're going to need all the styles, but it's just a really good, it shows you what's possible. And you can always, it's crazy what you pull on. Sometimes when I'm in an audition or a rehearsal or, you know, trying things with a character, there's certain principles that if you, it's almost, it's like, I heard Shia LaBeouf say, because he said he doesn't regard himself as a trained actor who went to school. And he says sometimes he's with other actors on a set and he can tell that they have a toolbox so that when they can't fix what they're trying to fix, they can dip into the toolbox and choose another instrument. So sometimes it feels a bit like that, but it's hard to judge because obviously I've now been through that. But there's certain things that I'm just trying to think of a concrete example. But it's a safety for when you're stuck, really. If you're in a position where, I don't know what they're asking me here. Like, I don't know what to do. And then you go, oh, wait a minute. You'll have a memory from that Shakespeare play that you absolutely hated. And they forced you to do it this way. And you're like, oh, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I can use that right now. So I guess that would be, yeah. And I think the stage, yeah, it's just a very solid, because you got an audience, you got a live audience, so it's high stakes performing. Because if they don't like it, they don't like it.
Yeah. What are some of the helpful things that you do for remembering, for like memorizing your lines when you're out there on stage?
I still don't know. If you've got any ideas, throw them in. I
actually have a thing that I keep forgetting to read that a guest of ours wrote. He actually wrote a book on how to act Shakespeare, and a section of it is memorizing.
Well, I think there's obviously ways you can learn. Everyone's got a different method. Everyone remembers things in a different way. For me, I think where I'm at, I've been doing it for 12, 13 years. And the answer is there's no tricks. There's no shortcuts. You just have to fucking read it 500 times. And, you know, Anthony Hopkins said that when somebody asked him what his method was. And he said, I just read it 200 times. That's all I do. And if you're doing a play, it's actually easier than you think, because if you've got a good rehearsal period and you're coming in every day full time and you're working through the scenes and you're saying the lines and you're saying them off the page, and then after a while it starts to become part of you, and then you can relate it to the movements around, so you know that, oh, when I move to the table, he slams his hand on the desk and he says that line. Okay, yeah, that's in there now. But in film and TV, often you don't have time, so it's just independently studying it and then turning up. And you might turn up and you might have blocked even what's on the script. Could be like, yeah, he sits down at the desk and says this. And then when you get there, they're like, oh, yeah, we didn't like the desk, so we got rid of the desk. So you're just going to be standing up against the wall. And then on that bit, you're going to be looking out the window. And you go, oh, okay. So with film and TV, it's way quicker. So you just have to do whatever you can to know the lines and then get on set. Hopefully your partner is willing to run them with you. And they always say it's easier to remember the lines if you know what they mean.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you're giving a best man speech or saying a few words and you've written it down, the joke that you love, you never forget. It's all the stuff that you kind of, that's all right. That's the bits that's hard to remember, but the really cool bits you normally remember because you know what it means to you.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I've always wondered about that. It might be one of the fears that I've had about trying it. I don't know. So were your parents supportive of your choice to become an actor?
They definitely were. They just didn't know what to do to help it in terms of... Actually, when we had the premiere of The Payday the other week, my mum was there. And I always thought she thought I was a bit crazy for wanting to be an actor. And then she piped up and she went, "No, I never thought that." She goes, "I think I always knew you were going to be an actor ever since you were a kid." And I was like, "Why didn't you tell me this all this time?" She would, my mum's a hairdresser. My dad was many a profession: taxi driver, forklift truck driver, Yellow Pages delivery man, unemployed. So with those professions, I think they just didn't want me to struggle for money. That was their main message of, listen, like, try and do something where you're not struggling for money. But at the same time, they said, you might as well just do what you want. Like, why not? So I think I was lucky in that sense. And maybe because I know some of the people who have, say, parents who are financially way more successful, that put a lot of pressure on, and maybe in that instance, it can actually be a hindrance, because if you're there, and mum and dad have paid for everything and all your fees for your fancy schools and all that, and you turn around and say, "Yes, I'm going to do an RT profession, thank you very much." And they're like, "No, you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor, which one?" So they were always very, and my two grandmothers, my nans, as we say in England, both of them were very supportive. One of my grandmothers, I always think, in another era, she should have been a Hollywood leading lady. She loved the movies. She used to sit me down in front of black and white films all the time. And at first I'd always be like, "Oh, Nan, why are we watching this old crap?" And then 20 minutes in, I'd be hooked. So in a way, I always felt like I was kind of doing it for her as well. Because she always had this complete, like, if she was still here and she knew that I was, in LA, in Hollywood, she just wouldn't believe it.
That's awesome. So I asked this question to Jane Badler. She lives in Australia. Might be a dumb question. You said that a lot of people, from your country watch American television.
Correct.
Is there like a Hollywood type place in England? Like, because your movie was shot there, right?
Yeah, in London, yeah. Are you talking about, do you mean Hollywood in terms of glamour,
like the place, yeah,
and reputation, or in terms of, I don't know, like, yeah, what do you mean? Like
I guess like where they go to shoot everything, like all the studios, and like where things are broadcast from, like an area like that.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally it'd be London. They do have a few pockets. The BBC have deliberately tried to spread it out a bit. So they've got a base in Manchester. They've got a base in Wales. Like Doctor Who is filmed in Wales, for example. So they've deliberately tried to have little, almost like satellite towns. But I guess, London would be the Hollywood. And then maybe Manchester would be Atlanta, Georgia, where, they got tax breaks and they make things there. Mm-hmm. And then Wales might be like, somewhere else where it's like a second, like a Chicago. But London is unrivaled. It's not like when you've got LA and New York. London is like, whoa. It's really unbalanced, actually. But there you go. London's one of the oldest cities in the world. Yeah,
but people still want to come here. Like the industry is much larger in the United States, though, right? Like people are still trying to come here for.
I think the industry is it's like Bambi versus Godzilla. In terms of quantity of things getting made, networks, right. Channels, streamers,
work, work, right?
Work, yeah. Just in terms of because you got a bigger population, sure. You got 50 states, and all 50 states are like mini countries, whereas England's like one state. I mean, it's got a big population for one state, but so we've only got so many channels, so many people to show shows to. So that's not to say that Britain, and even when I've come here, lots of British stuff does well over here, and you guys, And we make some great shows. We make some great films. We've got a great tradition in this profession, so we definitely make great stuff. But it sometimes can be a smaller pool of people that they pull from to make those shows. So it's kind of you got to work out where. I've done some big shows in the UK, but hence the payday. I don't want to have a career that's just doing one episode in a show, twice a year. I want to be doing meatier roles and bigger roles. So hence why,
Sure.
America has a lot more opportunity.
Sure. So how did you go about, you mentioned funding for the payday at the beginning of the show. So was it, how did you get the funding? Was it a crowdfunding thing or? I
didn't get fully involved in all of the, I'm kind of an associate producer, but I wasn't in the thick of it. But essentially it's an independently financed movie, private investment, and a lot of the key talent waived their fee. The director, and he already had an inbuilt crew from his production company called Praxima. So all of those guys were really hungry to make their first feature film. So it was like, we're waiving our fee. We'll take something at the back end when the money finally starts coming in. So there was a lot of that throughout the whole thing. But we got some, independent producers putting in money once we pitched them on the idea. So it's a very much an independent production, but we wanted to make it with the spirit of it being a movie that punches above its weight basically, and gives people because we didn't grow up on artsy, festival, looking into the abyss kind of films. We grew up on fun Hollywood action, comedy, romance. So that's what we wanted to do. And we thought, hey, well, we've got this budget. What can we do on that budget?
Yeah. For anyone who hasn't seen The Payday yet, definitely check it out. It's really, really good movie. Tell everyone where they can find it.
You can go to paydaymovie.com, whether you're in the US or the UK, and you can follow the links there. It's on, in the UK, Amazon, Apple, and Sky Store. And then in the US, Amazon, Apple, Vudu, Google Play, all of those ones. So, but paydaymovie.com will take you to wherever. Give us a ride.
Yeah, it's really good. I have a couple more notes here. What were you shooting in Florida? I heard you mention something in Florida. I live in Florida. I live in Tallahassee.
Oh, no way. Whereabouts?
Tallahassee.
It was Florida is my affectionate first American home, because I worked for Disney World when I was 19 in Orlando, and had a blast. So that we were filming in Tampa, and it's a psychological thriller called Bad Tenant, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be on the Lifetime network sometime next year. It was a lot of fun. It was a great cast, great director. It was a lot of fun being in Florida. Loved it.
I love it here. I've only been here a little over a year, but it's great. Ray, am I missing anything?
I think we got to the movie. We got to what he's doing now. What's next?
It's a lovely question that every actor wants to know the answer to.
Yeah.
It's basically it is. What's next is I've got a few more meetings before Christmas where I'm pitching movie ideas. I'm talking with Sam Bradford and Kyler about what our next film's going to be, and then aside from that, it's going to be pitching ideas, and then also auditioning for parts and seeing what comes next. I mean, 2023, it's all up in the air really. So it's the nature of the business. So hopefully someone sees The Payday, someone like Steven Spielberg, and just says, hey, that's Sam Benjamin. I definitely don't want to work with him. So,
well, no, what he says is I need that guy to play my British villain in the next 15 movies I make. That's what you need.
Or I've got somebody on one of these podcasts, somebody said that I was, and I don't know why they chose this film. They go, yeah, you've got a Tom Cruise in Days of Thunder vibe. And I just thought, I mean, I loved it, but I was like, why not? Why didn't they say Top Gun? Like, why Days of Thunder? Is it
because he was pretty young back then, right?
Yeah. Well, anyway, maybe the long lost younger sibling of Ethan Hunt. Maybe that's the call. Or I mean, that was a dream role back in the day, but I wouldn't want to step in. But Michael J. Fox's Marty McFly, what a role that is from behind you there.
Yes, sir.
So nowhere in there did I hear anything about Dixie Dean,
who
I want to know more about, and I want you to write about. So just give us a little rundown on Dixie Dean. I think that you should write this, man.
He's a sneaky one. This guy.
Yeah, he is.
Detective. You're like Columbo. You're like, oh, there's just one more thing.
No, I still have one more after this too.
Okay. 3 false exits. I want 3 false exits. Dixie Dean, for those who don't know, is some people regard him as the greatest goal scorer of all time. His English goal scoring record has never been beaten, even by Messi or Ronaldo. He scored 66 goals in a season for my club, Everton, back in the 20s and 30s. He played for England as well. And his story's never really been told. He's from my hometown of Birkenhead. I've actually got I'm slightly related to him by marriage through my stepdad. And yeah, it's just a rags to riches story in hard times of a guy that hardly anyone knows. And if he was here today, he'd be a multi-millionaire world celebrity. But back then, he retired and ended up running a pub and didn't think of it being that big a deal that he, and I don't know whether you
and he was the greatest of all time.
Some people regard him as the greatest of all time, and he also was very interesting because, without going too much into it, but Everton Football Club, my team, since I've been alive, really, we haven't really done much. We were one of the, I don't know what the equivalent team is.
I can tell you, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan over here. We haven't won shit in like 50 fucking years, so it's about the same.
Because I've heard, I was speaking to a Dallas Cowboys fan, and they said that they haven't won anything for a while, but they used to win it all the time.
Yeah.
But basically, we, in the 80s, we were winning leagues and winning trophies, and we're one of the oldest teams in the land. But recently, we've done nothing. And there's something about his philosophy on football that still is ingrained within the club. So it'd be something I'd love to do. But it's one of those projects where, it's like getting a project off the ground. But thank you for reminding me. He's one of the guys that, I'd love to play, and I'd love to do his story.
With the success of Ted Lasso, this might be the right striking point.
Yeah. It's and funnily enough, someone just approached me about a football-related, a soccer-related project. So who knows? Yeah, it's definitely. There's always been appeal of soccer, but yeah, maybe Ted Lasso has broken the American market a little bit for you guys to like it a bit more. I don't know. Yeah,
it's been pretty popular. Soccer has become, especially when the World Cup is on, it's huge. I mean, Americans, all of a sudden are soccer fans when the World Cup is on. I've never seen anything like it.
Everyone suddenly has a relative who's Brazilian. I've noticed. Oh yeah, I got my Brazil shirt on. Yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah, but Ray makes a good point there. While the iron is hot, maybe now would be a good time to work on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's one of those, and I don't even know full details, but I know that there's always been talk of a project about Dixie Dean, and I don't know whether even the rights are tied up with some family members who are already making a project. But I feel like it's a kind of project where, you know, after the payday and after something that raises my profile a bit, once I've got a bit more of a name, it's something that I'd be in a better position to maybe get going.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And something else that is hot, very, very hot right now, that you have a movie that I'm very interested in about called The Screwjob.
Yep.
Tell us about this, man. So we're obviously both pro wrestling fans. You're wearing a Macho Man Randy Savage shirt. I'm wearing an Arn Anderson. It's almost.
Whoa! I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, toot, baby. I hate to toot my own horn, but toot.
Big fan of Arn Anderson. What a legend.
So tell us about The Screwjob, man. When I first saw the title, I obviously went right to the Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah.
That's where my head went. But after reading more about it, it's not anything like that.
Well, I'm happy about that because I was hoping. I don't want to annoy Brett. I don't want him to go, wait a minute.
He's an angry man.
Well, no, but and also because I love the guy. So
yeah,
the hero of mine. Screwjob. I'll be honest. It's a small project. It's going to be about. It's going to be an 8-minute short film. The post-production has gone a lot slower than I thought. It's already in the can. I'm just waiting for the credits to be put in and a few of the other kind of visuals to be finished, and then it's good to go. And I'm going to submit it to festivals, film festivals, and see what happens. And it's essentially it's my first project as a director. So for that one, I did direct, write, and star.
Nice. Very cool.
And I think it was really just a case of I had an inkling I wanted to try directing, and I thought, well, if I'm going to direct, I might as well do the film that I want to do. And I just thought, what film do I want to make? And then it became, I wanted to do something in the world of wrestling, and then I just started brewing ideas, and then obviously the Screwjob incident in Montreal is a fascinating thing. But actually, even though it's called Screwjob, because that's such a good word, isn't it? But I was thinking about this the other day. I would say that the energy behind it is actually more, to me, the Screwjob. The biggest Screwjob for me personally was the Screwjob that happened at One Night Only in '97 when Shawn Michaels beat the British Bulldog.
Okay.
And I was there with my dad as a young kid, and you know, the hometown hero
loses in front of his crowd.
In front of his home fans, and
Vince McMahon did not care about you one bit.
Shawn Michaels cheats to win, and Brett and Owen were nowhere to be seen until it was too late. And also, Bulldog dedicated the match to his sister who had cancer. And I'm like, and apparently, from what I've heard, apparently it was a last-minute change. Apparently, the plan was, in fact, I was listening to Jim Ross talking about it, and he said the plan all along was for Bulldog to be victorious and he was undefeated at home as well at the time. And for the Davey Boy Smith, talk about a guy that was largely responsible for WWE's British fan base.
Absolutely.
They wouldn't have been able to do SummerSlam 92 if it wasn't for the Bulldog. And I was just like, that's not on. And especially as a kid, I was like, what? And I can remember my dad was, after it ended, and I was just stood there in complete shock. And my dad was like, I think it's over now. I think we can go. and I was like, that can't be it. That can't be it. And then I remember Brett and Owen came out to run off Shawn and Triple H. And then I was just like, too late? What are you doing?
Where were you?
And I'm still angry about it.
I always have to tell my friends this. It's not real.
What it is? Did you not? It was on Ric Flair's. I don't know if it was Ric Flair's Instagram or a fan account, and they posted one of the promos he did where with Eric Bischoff and with the Four Horsemen in the ring on Nitro, and he's in a tux, and he just keeps saying over and over again, "This is real." This is real. And I was like, "Yeah, exactly." So, no, but I think that was, I think my screw job is more associated with that. So I took the principle and that very dramatic concept that, you know, a win could be taken away from you, even if you feel like you deserve it. It still can be taken away. So I hope I don't disappoint now, because it was a very low budget shoot, and it's more about the drama behind the scenes than it hasn't got any real bone crunching wrestling action, partly because of the budget, because I just thought if I was going to do a movie with a wrestling match in it, I'd want it to be, you know, really perfection, and that would involve choreography and rehearsal time and, you know, hiring people in to really make sure everything was all good. So it's very much a behind the scenes, more character driven piece. And Eloise Lavelle Anderson is the lead, and she's incredible. So I'm looking forward to, and I'm hoping my aim for it is to, well, for a few people who are snotty about wrestling to go, oh yeah, this wrestling thing, but also I think it'd be a great basis for a full length movie. Yeah. And I'm not going to say who it is, but I bumped into a very, very big wrestler in a coffee shop the other week who'd be perfect in it. So I've kind of laid a bit of foundation. So who knows? Hopefully it'll get some interest, and yeah, hopefully if wrestling fans get behind it, I can do something, because I do think fighting with my family I enjoyed, and the wrestler was unbelievable. But I feel like they were both really extreme in the terms of the wrestler was quite dark, that's the story it was meant to be. And then Fighting with My Family was very, very like glossy and cheesy. I'd love to tell a story that kind of has the light and the dark, and is a bit of a, you know, it's a real drama, but it's also inspiring, but also with some tragedy in there as well.
Yeah. Well, if you need any help with, before that, the point of making an 8-minute short is to eventually try and be something bigger. Is that?
Yeah, it's like a funny thing in the industry, a short film. It's kind of what you do when you don't have $1 million to make a film, sure, but you want to tell a story that means something to you. So you gather in some talent, and sometimes, you know, as actors or filmmakers, we just want to work. So if you got nothing going on for a few months, then, you know, you pull in your friend who's a great DP, you pull in your friend who's a great, focus puller, and then you're like, oh, and, you know, my friend Eloise, she'd be great in this role. And you just, you know, you get together and you make something. And then, yeah, sometimes, especially nowadays with how much cheaper technology is, people want to see what they're backing. So, you know, you can go into an office and, you know, pitch them an idea, but if you can say, hey, just watch this, it's going to be like this. Oh yeah, I see it. So yeah, sometimes it can be, you know, even Robert Rodriguez did it with Sin City. He made that scene with Josh Hartnett at the beginning. Yeah. He just filmed that on its own, and then sent it to the, you know, the studios or whoever was funding it, just to put them at ease and go, this is what it's going to be like. So or, you know, there's a film festival circuit as well for short films where people, you know, film buffs go and they watch a night of short films and see, you know, good little mini stories.
That's sure. They did that with Spinal Tap too, because they couldn't describe. Yeah, they couldn't really describe it, so they made a little short, like 8-10 minute thing to show them what it was going to be, and they still didn't get it, but they made the movie. So
yeah, oh, what a film!
Is that available anywhere, Ray? That short?
I don't think so. I think it's one of those things, you know, back then they didn't really think that these were going to be something important. So they didn't really keep track of them very well. It's kind of like the original Caddyshack version is like 4-5 hours long, and as they edited it, they just threw it on the floor.
Jesus.
So a lot of it's lost to history.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, that's like a lot of like old live television was never recorded, and then they just would record right over the
they
reel.
record
They would just
over
keep going. Like this Vampira actually.
Mm-hmm.
The day we're recording, 12/11. Today's actually Christmas when this comes out, but 12/11. Today's actually her birthday. Vampira Mila Nurmi, and same thing. There's about 3 minutes of footage that exists of her. Because it was the same deal. They never recorded anything from her show. But I'm really looking forward to this this movie, Sam. This little short with the rest.
Well, thank you.
I'm not sure if you knew this, but right out of high school, I was a pro wrestler for a few years.
No way.
Yeah, my name was Zachary. Exactly.
That's a good name, but what was the gimmick?
I was just I was like a pothead cocaine addict.
Okay. What
like
Hang on.
They would make fun of me. Like the commentators would always say, like, this looks like Hugh Morris, like a Hugh Morris's like duffel bag. Like a lot of my friends would joke that I would just wear the same shit to the ring that I would get to the show in.
So hang on, but if you're a pothead and a cokehead, was your character like amped up, or was he? Like,
oh yeah, I was like basically just myself.
Because I was thinking of who is it? Matt Riddle. He's got the laid back stoner vibe.
Yeah.
But then I feel like the coked up vibe puts you more in a macho man category.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
there's some videos on YouTube. I would put like powder around my nose and all kinds of stuff.
Not one.
I should have stuck with it, man. But I was shy back then, and like I would never, it was the independent scene. I would work for the guys that trained me, and I wouldn't put myself out there and go, and try and get on other shows. So it eventually just faded away.
Where was that? Was that in Florida?
No, I'm actually originally from Pennsylvania, so it was like around Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Yeah. Actually, I'm sure you're familiar with ECW, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. They had a short run there, Bad Crew.
No, I don't remember.
Bad Crew number 1 and number 2. Okay. Those are the guys that trained me, actually. They were in ECW for a while. Yeah.
I did when I was on the did a movie called I Am Vengeance, Retaliation with Stu Bennett, Bad News Barrett, and also on that film was a guy called Greg Burridge, who's a seasoned independent pro wrestler from England. And he invited me over after the movie to come and train at his place. And oh my God, it was unbelievable.
How many squats did he make you do?
Well, you know what? Actually, the warm-up, I'm gonna sound like a cocky bastard, but then I'm gonna bring myself down straight away. The warm up and the physical fitness element, I dealt with okay, but then in the ring, oh my God, just bumping. Because he had us taking some bumps, and it was and. Because I always joke and I say, people say, "Oh, why did you want to be an actor?" And I'm like, "Because I knew I couldn't be a pro wrestler, so it was the next best thing." But it's interesting because I feel like now, like when I was, I'm 5'10", and when I was growing up, like I was like, "Well, no way can I be a pro wrestler? I'm tiny compared to these guys." But now, like, there's guys on there that are smaller than me, and I'm like, "Oh, what's going on here?" But I'm in awe of professional wrestlers for what, the mix of the athletic ability, the pain threshold, the commitment, and the performance aspect. I'm just like, that's why I love it so much. The older I've got, the more I love it, because the more I've understood about what sacrifices need to be made. And I was hurting for like 3 weeks after one 3-hour session, and I was like, "Yep, think that's going to be me for now." I think. Although somebody said to me, a friend of mine who's a pro wrestler, he's called, actually keep an eye out for him. He's called Bullet, and he's in Progress Wrestling at the moment in the UK, but he's on the rise, and he's in Screwjob. And I was telling him about my session, about how like the next few days I felt like I couldn't walk, and then I said I was hurting for like 2 weeks after 3 weeks, and he goes, "Dude, there's your mistake." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You should have trained the next day." And I was like, "All right." And he goes, "Yeah, no." He said, "I'm being serious. Like, if he does a match." And then does the next match he does, if he does a match like every month, once every 2 weeks, he feels it. But if he does like 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week, he doesn't feel it. So he's like, it's like I don't know whether you relate to that or whether you're like, that's absolute shit. But for him, it's like your body gets into the zone and it kind of becomes calloused almost if you continually do it. I don't know whether that's true.
Casey lost his mic over there.
What's going on over there?
Fix your microphone, Casey. We
suspend.
Nothing.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Did you touch that cord?
Dude,
you touched the cord, didn't you?
New setup. I didn't touch anything.
Jesus.
I can fucking yank this thing all over the place.
Apparently not.
I don't know where we were. Sam, this has been awesome, man. I'm really looking forward to this movie. The Payday's awesome. Check it out. Let me see if I have anything else. Oh, are you watching AEW?
You know what? I haven't watched it for the last month or so. The last thing I saw was I think it was the pay-per-view before last, but I don't know how do I watch it in America? I haven't figured that out yet. What channel is it on?
TBS or TNT. TBS on Wednesdays and TNT on Friday.
And can I watch that on some kind of on-demand thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure wherever you're staying has on demand, right?
Yeah, I've just been catching up on Survivor Series. But yeah, AEW, I was loving AEW. What is it? Are you digging it at the moment?
Dude, so here, confession. I stopped watching pro wrestling 20 years ago. Like when I got into pro wrestling, I stopped watching it.
Yeah.
And I would only catch maybe WrestleMania every year with my buddies.
Yeah.
When All In, I believe, was the very first, like the independent, that was like the independent pay-per-view with like all the promotions, right? I heard about that and I saw the match. I'm not sure if was that Cody and Dustin where they fought each other on that one. I saw that and I was like, I want to fucking see what this is all about. And I have been watching AEW since that, and like it has been awesome. It's so good, so good.
I watched it pretty much consistently. I've just had a gap in the recent couple of months, but I think it was exactly what pro wrestling needed. The competition, and also just that. I mean, maybe I'm old school, but I think sometimes WWE has been trying to reinvent the wheel, and it's like all you got to do is have someone who people want to get battered, and someone who people want to win, and it's just basic. Even though I hated it, but when I just talked about the British Bulldog, it's like you gotta have outright villainy. You've got to have horrendous people doing terrible stuff, cheating. That's why the NWO was so good, was because in a match they just sent 20 guys in to batter the hell out of a bunch of the good guys. So, but yeah, AEW, some of it, like there's like a third of AEW that doesn't tickle my fancy because it's too like acrobatic. Not to say
you're old school,
skilled, but I just feel like I like it realistic, and if it looks too dance-like, I think it loses the drama. So I think there's some of that, but generally it's just been really great. And I know Regal's in there, and
he's gone.
Is he gone?
I He's gone. I don't want to ruin it, but apparently he got out of his contract early so he could go back to WWE.
Well,
his son's there now. His son's in WWE.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, I think also
can't remember the kid's name, but
if
Chris something.
Oh, I don't know. If who knows? I think WWE is going to improve and has to improve. And I think Triple H likes more of the old school as well. You can see.
I'm wondering since Regal left, this has been in the back of my mind for a little while, especially with like AEW working with other promotions, a lot of the independent promotions, and even some of the bigger ones like New Japan and Impact and NWA, stuff like that. I'm wondering if Regal was sent there as like
a secret agent.
I'm wondering if there's going to be some sort of big crossover coming.
What?
I don't know. It's just that's been in the back of my head for a long time, man. That would be so good for business for everyone.
Oh, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't see. The thing is, with things like that, I don't even know if maybe under Triple H it'd be different, but I just feel like I get the impression WWE's like production like machine, just they wouldn't accept their wrestlers on anything that wasn't in their control 100%. And that's one of the things I love about AEW is it felt like, which is I think history's been told one way, but some of my favorite memories as a kid watching wrestling was watching WCW Nitro, because it felt like the cameras, and yes, sometimes this was because of, backstage, it was all last minute, but with WCW, it felt like it was cameras covering a sporting, event where you didn't know what was going to happen. Whereas WWE, especially now, there's that element of like, it does feel like it's not spontaneous, and it feels like a television show rather than a television broadcast of a show. So that's what I love about AEW, just that little bit of, and Tony Schiavone's voice doesn't. He's
so good, man, right?
Yeah, it also adds to it as well. I think that was the right touch. But I think somebody said, I think it was on. I don't know whether you listen to OSW Review. Do you know about this? Check it out. OSW Review. It's three Irish guys review old wrestling pay-per-views, but it's like a video podcast, and they're hilarious. But they also it's really cool, and they sometimes they talk really, they talk about their girlfriends, and they say, yeah, every time I've got wrestling on, my girlfriend walks in when it's the most horrendous, like cringy, worst piece of television ever. It'll be like the moment when it's the mud wrestling match or the stupid, gimmick blow up doll on a pole, and my girlfriend will be like, why do you watch this? This is terrible. And then one of them finally worked out an answer to it, and he said, listen, we watched wrestling because, listen, most of the time it doesn't quite nail it, but when it nails it, it's the best thing you can watch. It's like when they get it right, it's lightning in a bottle. Those moments we can count on our hands when we're like, oh, sure, everyone's got one of those when you're a kid, or just those moments. Like I don't know, I wasn't there, but SummerSlam '92, I imagine, was probably one of those moments.
Yeah, man. My girlfriend hates wrestling, so like I sure
get rid of her.
Dude, like 10 minutes before we started this, I was showing her. It was the funniest thing I've seen in the longest time. I don't know why I like it so much, but I love when people do Dusty Rhodes' accent. Or not accent, his lisp.
Yeah.
And I've never heard William Regal do an American accent, let alone a Dusty Rhodes impression. Yeah. And during his podcast the other day, he was talking about the very first time he ever met Dusty Rhodes. And it was in a 12 by 12 room.
Was it when he's naked?
Naked, sitting in his cowboy boots. And William Regal handed him his paperwork or whatever. And Dusty just looks over him. He goes, and Doug Dillinger is standing behind him.
Of course he is.
He's a giant. Folded, his arms are folded behind him, and Dusty looks over this paperwork and he goes, "Steven, I'm just like Whitney Houston. I have my own bodyguard." and then he said, "Okay, thank you." And Steven Regal just left. He's like, I have no idea what else to say.
Yeah. What can you say? Yeah, I've heard. That is
so fucking great, man.
Yeah, that is what a legend. So is Arn your favorite of all time?
I wouldn't say no, he's not my favorite all time. I think the Iron Sheik would have to be my favorite.
What?
Yeah, man.
Iron Sheik. That villain.
From Tehran. Tehran.
Well, hang on, you're American, you're supposed to hate him.
I love bad guys, man.
That's what's missing from today, by the way.
Yeah,
that's why MJF.
He's so good.
Is so good because he gets it, and nowadays it's easier than ever to wind people up.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know why. Like he in the 80s, he'd be a decent heel, but in 2022 he's untouchable.
Yeah,
because nobody's doing, and I don't know why more people don't. But yeah, I love all of that stuff. Like a good old fashioned someone who just is willing to be hated, like absolutely hated.
Yeah.
But
so it sounds like you listen to a bunch of wrestling podcasts. Have you ever heard the story about Arn Anderson getting stabbed on his way out of a building?
Probably. I mean, I listen to a lot of Jim Cornette, so I've probably heard. I've probably heard.
So Arn has a podcast. It's called The Arn Show.
Oh yeah, I've listened to it. Yeah.
About he got stabbed on the way out of a building, and Conrad Thompson, the podcast partner, was like, "And you actually went back the next day?" He goes, "I was just doing my job, man." I was really good at my job.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like some of the stories you hear of back in the day when it was really high stakes stuff, and obviously we don't want stabbings, but it'd be nice, I don't know, but as well, even in the football culture in England, you try and explain it to people, and like we don't go, like when I go and see my home team, we don't go to have fun. We don't go for the enjoyment. It's a life and death. We must win, or my whole week is going to be shit. That's the mentality. And you go, and whoever you're playing, like, it always feels like the ref is on their side. And they'll dive, and then the ref will give the decision to them, and we're like, "Oh, come on!" And then that player does a little gesture to the home fans, and then we get riled up, and we're shouting abuse. They're shouting abuse at us. I'm like, that's like, it doesn't mean it's going to get violent. It's just that's part of the. Once you're in the stadium, it's that thing, and I think that's most of the good wrestling matches, the memorable ones, is where the crowd is really, like I always think about, like I always go back and watch Goldberg versus Hogan in the Georgia Dome. That crowd is so wants Goldberg to win and Hogan to get his ass kicked.
Hell yeah,
and it's palpable, the energy in there, and Hogan, he's just doing all these little cheating things, and one of his cronies comes down, and the crowd's on him. And I think it's they need to just do that.
That was true heat, man. When Hogan turned, there was nothing ever like that. That was fucking incredible.
Well, yeah, and even though loads of people, I mean, I don't know what he's like as a person. Loads of people give him stick, but you know, he was the pioneer of the '80s wrestling boom, really, as a hero. And then in the '90s wrestling boom, he was the heel.
Yeah.
So it's like, and in the '90s, you watch his matches, he doesn't need to do much.
Doesn't do anything.
Just be a coward. Dead easy. It's like when I watch when you watch a lot of WWE recently, my main gripe is, if you don't cheat, are you a heel? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
I'm supposed to not like you, but you just won the match fair and square. What am I meant to do with that? Just because you do a scowl when you go to the ring. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, anyway, we could talk for hours.
Anyway, yeah, Sam, we could talk for hours about wrestling. Maybe we'll have to have you back on just the pro wrestling episode.
There you go.
Please tell everyone where they can find you, all that good stuff before we wrap here.
So go to paydaymovie.com and watch the Payday. Give us a buy or a rent and have a fun ride. Or you can follow me at Sam Benjamin now. And yeah, that's how you can reach me, and I hope you like the film, and yeah, give us a generous review if you feel like it.
Will do, man. Thank you so much for taking the time, brother.
No, thank you so much. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas,
Yes,
everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Forgot about that. Merry Christmas. Yeah. All right, we'll see you, man.